Hang on. I'm shaking off September. Hang on. Okay, here we go. My good buddy Logan Erdman. Let's get to it.
There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast.
All right, welcome back, guys. We are back on schedule. This is Jim Huntsman, host of the Western Huntsman Podcast. And this time, I am officially back in the Broken Tine studio, coming at you from the Broken Tine studio here in Hayden, Idaho. And no, not on the mountain anymore. September has come and gone. What a freaking season, man. It was crazy. It was crazy. I need to explain this episode. So I've got today's guest is his name is Logan Erdman, and he's my buddy from Ohio, and he comes out west to hunt elk and mule deer and all sorts of stuff out here. And he's also the custom knife maker that made the knife for our youth hunters. Which, by the way, youth hunters, your prizes are just about to be shipped out. I'm waiting for my order from Phelps Game Calls to show up. I ordered some stuff from them. And I don't know when it's going to get here, but as soon as it does, I'll throw everything in the mail and get you your logins and all that. So just hang in there for that. I just need to get that stuff here, so I can't send it to you if I don't have it, right? So that's where we're at with that. But I do have the knife that Logan made, and this thing is sweet. I can't wait to get this to the winner. So that aside, so Logan agreed to come on the show. He came out to North Idaho this last September. And had his wife with him and all this stuff. And you're going to hear the whole story, but he got a pretty stellar bowl here and getting it done. And here's the thing, and I need to reach out and get a hold of Logan. The interview gets cut off halfway through, like almost to the second, halfway through. I knew I was struggling with the internet because we'd gotten back into town. And we'd set up this interview. It was just, a few nights ago. And the internet was like super shaky. And I'm like, what the hell's going on with this? So anyway, I just carried on. And so I'm recording in Zoom. And Zoom usually works very, very well for me. But for some reason, it only got half of it. And when I came in this morning to do all the editing and get this episode live and all that kind of stuff, get us back on track, I don't know what happened. It just wasn't there. And so I'm getting a lot better with the technology side of the whole podcast thing I'm doing here. But I'm not good enough to know what the hell happened to the rest of the audio. And I'm really pissed because the second half was actually a lot better than the first half. And what we talked about, what you miss in that episode, and what I want to get Logan back on the show to talk about, is how he logistically plans and does these hunts coming from Ohio. So he comes out to Idaho, he comes out to Colorado, he just comes out west to do all this hunting every year. And I feel like he had some really good insight as to how logistically he pulls all this off. Because he drives, he doesn't fly, he drives, he loads his truck and comes out, and he's out here for a long time. And so it was a really good discussion with a lot of really good content that I think a lot of people would benefit from, and I screwed it up. So what I do have, because it's the only thing I have recorded, because I've been out of town all of September, what I do have is good. And it's basically a discussion a little bit about Logan's background, and then we get into some hunting stories, and they're pretty good. And we have just a great conversation. But again, the second half, it just like randomly cuts out. So I had to kind of record something on the end. So, yeah, sorry, guys. I promise I'm going to do whatever I can to make that never happen again. I've got some great guests coming up over the next few weeks that you guys are going to want to stay tuned for, because they are pretty fantastic human beings. And so I'm excited about that. So just a quick rundown. So we're back into September. I keep using the word "so." I'm working on that. We're back into we're back into October. September is in the rearview mirror. September 2020. There's only 11 months to go, and technically, it's less than 11 months at this point till next September. So I know that there were many archery hunters that make it so you rifle hunters don't need to worry. We left you lots of elk. I can tell you right now, I don't know that I've ever been through a September where I've seen so many bulls. And even with the way my September went, I promise you, I left you some bulls. There was just a lot of elk. The difference was, and it was something that I talked about a little bit in the last episode when I was recording up there on the mountain. I still had a few days left, which actually turned out to be some very epic elk hunting time left in the woods there. But I talked about how this September was in the North Idaho area. It was super different this year than most years. The bulls were not like just cranking, man. They weren't. You could get them to bugle from far away. Like I'd stand out a locator bugle, and I'd get a response, and he'd be 2, 3, 4, shoot, even 500 yards away, and he'd bugle back. And then when I'd close the distance and bugle again, they'd shut up, which is abnormal. Last year when I did that, I'd piss those bulls off so bad that they'd just come or just about run me over. Not the case this year, and I'm not totally sure what dictates that and what happens. We discussed in the last episode that it is not a factor of when the rut is or when the rut isn't, and I went into detail about why the time of the rut really doesn't change much. It might shift around a few days, and it might have some adjustments from year to year, but I've seen some people commenting, well, I should have got a rifle tag because they're not going to rut until mid-October. Now, guys, that's not the case. You might find some hot cows come into season around mid-October that are kind of going through their second cycle or whatever, but that's not the case. So anyways, discussed that in the last episode, so we'll leave that there. But in this case, I really would like to get somebody like Chris Rowe, who I've had on the show before, who is a biologist, and he's had a lot of experience in the elk arena, not just in the elk woods, but studying them as part of his school and degree program and all that kind of stuff. And so I feel like I could probably get a pretty good answer out of Chris on this, but it was an odd year. It was an off year. I had friends texting me that it is a shit year. They're not doing what they normally do. And so I had to adjust. It was probably by about the 15th of September. And just so you guys, just to put it into perspective, my season opened September 6th. It ended on September 30th. That's 24 days. I spent 22 of those days in the elk woods. And out of those 22 days, I believe I counted 18 elk encounters where I actually had encounters with a bull elk. I'm not talking about some bull that squawked at me 3 miles away on some other ridge. Now, this is an actual encounter where there was interaction, and one thing or another happened. The point being is I spent a lot of time in the elk woods, and much to my wife's dismay, I only showered like 4 times, but most of the time I had them, my wife and the kids were in camp. In fact, the girls would at one of the areas we camped, the girls would actually follow me off in the morning on their bikes, and they'd kind of follow me down the road until I cut off on the trail I'd take, because I was just base camp hunting. And so that was a lot of fun, actually. A really unique experience. The girls helped me track a bull. I was really proud of them. My 9 and 11-year-old went 3.5 miles of some treacherous, steep, thick jungle of North Idaho without complaint. And they got to have their first peak refuel in the backcountry, or not really backcountry, but off grid. And that was a lot of fun. Great experience for them. They're going to be excellent trackers by the time this is all said and done. So, anyways, the point being, I spent a lot of time. I had a lot of encounters, had a lot of close calls, and I talked about a few of them in the last episode. I talk about some in this episode. The second to last day, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was wore out. I had put multiple miles on my brand new Hoffman boots, which I love. Man, those boots are fantastic. And I was just I was beat down emotionally too, because I kept feeling like, something was going to change with the elk, that they were going to start getting a little bit more fired up, a little bit more aggressive, but they were just coming in quiet. They were coming in super quiet. So around the 15th, I adjusted my tactics, and instead of what I would do is I'd still use a locator bugle, but once I located them, I would switch completely to cow calls. And almost every time that I did that, and I closed the distance and closed the gap, almost every time I did that, I'd get an elk coming in. But it was one of those things where, I think he's going to come in this way, and next thing I know, he's 15 feet to my left staring at me through the brush, and the fact that I turned my head to look at him because I heard something, he runs off. That happens so many times, multiple times, and just it was fun, actually. It was like cat and mouse with multiple different bulls all September. It was a good time. So anyway, second to last day, the 29th. I'm just beat down. I'm emotionally tired. I'm physically exhausted. My legs just felt like, noodles, and I just was more of a emotional thing, like a mental thing. I forced myself to go out that day. It was like and my wife knew it. She's in camp, and she knew I wasn't super motivated at this point, but I did. I forced myself to go out. I'm like, I've got 2 days left. I've got to make something happen. So I've got to make something happen. I'm going to push myself. So I did. I went out and I found this bull that I had 3 or 4 different encounters with already, and he was a real funky bull. He only chuckled. He wouldn't bugle. He just chuckled, which is really strange for a Rocky Mountain elk. He just chuckled. He didn't like to bugle. So I was sick of it. I was sick of his little chuckles, and he'd come in quiet after that. And so when he chuckled the last time, I dropped out of this off the top of this basin down into where he was in this real thick timber. And I got right on the edge of that timber and attacked with the just gnarly ass bugle. Just the most menacing bugle you've ever heard in your life. Finally, after all these elk would come in quiet, I pissed a bull off. I called this bull Mr. Chuckles because that's all he did. And by the way, I met a buddy, or not a buddy, I met a guy up there who had an encounter with this bull too, and he called him Mr. Chuckles too. So Alex, the registered nurse from Grangeville, Idaho. I don't know if you listen to this show. I didn't tell you I had this show, but I finally stuck that Mr. Chuckles, man. Unfortunately, for me and for you, Alex, and for Mr. Chuckles, quite frankly, I did piss him off. I got him fired up. He came in, and he's just screaming, and I'm raking some huckleberry brush with my bugle tube. I'm using that Renegade Dirk Durham signature tube, and there was no sticks around to start raking, so I took my tube, and I just start cracking at this huckleberry brush. Super tall, it's thick, it's wet, and I'm just whacking it, and he's in there just raking up a storm, and he's moaning and groaning and slobbering, he's getting pissed, the kind of call-in that you just dream about all year. I had it going. Finally, I had this bull pissed. He's 50 yards in this dark timber, and there's like this old logging road with a bunch of growth on it, because it had been shut down years and years ago, but you could tell it was an old road, and it's just got all this buckbrush and crap all over it, and he's coming in, and I can hear him cracking sticks, and he's moaning and bugling and grunting and all this stuff, and he kind of comes out onto this little flat, perfect 23-yard shot broadside for me, and I draw back. I've got him in my sights, and I release that arrow. I thought he was dead. I thought I had smoked him. However, I did notice when the arrow released, I had the slightest, ever so slightest deflection off this little twig that couldn't have been thicker than a pencil. It always amazes me what little the smallest things, how they can affect the arrow in flight. It just blows my mind. And that's what happened. That arrow deflected, and I nailed him right in the shoulder. It was heartbreaking. In fact, when I hit him, I actually didn't know this. I thought for sure he was dead. He flopped around on the ground for a minute like a fish out of water, and then he jumped up and started trucking across back into that dark timber and around to the north face of that slope. And I thought, and so at this point, after the arrow released, I only had about 20 minutes of shooting light left. And so I go down there after he kind of trucked off to the other side, and I go down there and I find blood. I find the arrow. Arrow looks like it's just a complete pass through, but it's not. And anyways, I'm looking at it and I find this big splatter of blood. And I look down and it looks, and I think I don't know if it was a lighting or what, but when I had to break out my headlamp at this point because I didn't go down there immediately. I gave it a good half an hour or so, so it was pretty much getting dark. Turn the headlamp on, and I'm looking at this blood, and it looks really dark. And I'm like, oh man, I think I liver shot him. And so I made the call. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to back out because it's probably going to take him, these things 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours, even 6 hours if you liver hit him. Take a while for him to die. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to back out. I'm going to let him settle down, and I'll find him first thing in the morning. And to this point, as I'm talking to you today, I still believe I would have made the same call. It was a good call to back out because it was dark anyway at that point. So next morning, get up. I get my girls. I've got them these cool little camouflage packs. I can't remember what name. Just some cheap packs. I wanted them to be part of the experience of packing this elk out, and that's what I thought this was just going to go in there, locate him, and pack him out. And I got my wife a pack as well. Hers is obviously a lot better than the girls. It's my old meat hauler pack. So fitted that to her, and I take him down there. We go park the truck. I took my dog even. And we start heading down looking for this bull. And I just figured, yeah, we'll locate him, cut him up, and get him out. No big deal. Get on the blood trail, and this blood trail just keeps going and going and going. But it was really light-colored blood. I had not noticed that the night before. So it just wasn't real dark blood like I was expecting. And so I'm losing confidence. After about a mile of tracking it, it's a decent blood trail. The blood trail abruptly ends. And this happens sometimes. I've never seen one have such a consistent flow and then end so abruptly. I've seen them kind of trickle out after a while. But in this case, it just was like this abrupt end. And it looked like he'd laid in some wet, it wasn't like quite mud, but it was wet dirt, enough to pack a wound. And I think I shoulder hit him. Just based on the color of the blood, I think that was just a muscle hit. And so he's out there running around laughing at me. Never did find him. We spent all day looking. I gridded out just in case, because at the point where the trail ended, I had pretty much came to the conclusion that I had hit him right in the shoulder, and really there wasn't much damage, and he's out of here. He's probably in freaking Texas by now, and so I'm really disappointed because the day we're tracking him, we're spending the whole day looking for this bull elk, and that's the last day of season. I was kind of out of options. In fact, that night as we're kind of making our way back to the truck, I called in another bull. I didn't have my bow on me, but I called in another bull up close to the truck, and he was in the other drainage. And he was not the same bull, just if anybody's questioning that, because, you once you've heard one bull, there's a way you can usually tell when it's the same bull. If you really listen, and this guy didn't chuckle at all. But anyway, I called him in until he got a little too close to the road, and he changed his mind. But the goal was I wanted the girls, my kids, to see the bull come in all fired up. So that was interesting, but we spent all day. And then I went back the next morning, which was the day after season closed, and did one more look. I looked, and at this point, I'm quite confident that the elk, it was not a fatal hit, and he's gone. He's running around. He's fine. The wound will heal, and now he's all yours, rifle hunters. I even went back yesterday, which is 4 or 5 days later, just to make sure. And I did a crow check, and I scoured the entire basin for crows. Didn't find any. No birds, no crows, no nothing. So the elk that I refer to as Mr. Chuckles lives on, and I'm happy. I'm happy that I didn't find crows yesterday. I'm happy. I'm pleased that I didn't fatally wound this bull and not find him for several days after the meat had gone sour, because that's obviously, if you guys know me, that's happened in the past. And I didn't want to repeat that for sure. So he lives on. A little twig screwed me up. But one real key takeaway is it is amazing how quickly you can go from 0 to 60. And what I mean by that is it's not like my season at any point during September was at 0. Because it wasn't. It never was. It was. I would say that most of it, if you averaged it out, would be at like 10. Let's just use 10 as an average. Some days were diamond, some days were stone. You know how it goes. But you get all deflated, and you kind of, and at least I do. I bust my ass, and then nothing's happening. The bulls come in silent, and they bust me before I can get them, or whatever. You just kind of get deflated after a while. It's amazing how that can change and how quickly that could change, because it went from 10 to 60 in 2 seconds. When I knew this particular bull was in that general vicinity, and I'd kind of given up on him because he wouldn't get fired up, but I knew he was there. And so I just got close and started cow calling. That's what initially got his first response, which was obviously a set of chuckles. And at that point, that's when I dropped down and bugled my face off and really pissed him off. So it's just amazing how it can go from, just you feel kind of hopeless to all of a sudden you got a screaming bull in your face. And it was just amazing. Guys, I learned a lot this September. I still have an opportunity to kill an elk with a rifle. I've got a couple of deer tags. I've still got my bear tag, which I should probably focus on for a minute, but haven't yet. But anyways, my goal is I want to get a mule deer and a whitetail this year. One of each, and that's kind of where we're sitting. So we've got some good stuff happening. Other than that, it was a great season. I learned a lot. I hope you guys did too. And if you guys have any super cool stories, I put it out there on like Facebook or something. But if you guys have any good stories from this September, like super unique, crazy things that happened or crazy call-ins, something like that you want to share with me, shoot me an email at jim@thewesternhuntsman.com, because I'd like to read some crazy stories on the show at some point. So anyway, guys, without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kick this off with Logan, and we're going to I'm going to try to get him back on the show, because the information he had, you guys need to hear it. It's really good. It's really solid. He's such a cool dude. I really like the guy, and he's just he's got talent. He's got that level of motivation that a lot of hunters seek to find in each other. He's the kind of guy that'll just inspire you, and that's my kind of hunter, man. And I really liked having him on the show, and I apologize to him for this cut off audio, but we're gonna get it fixed, and we're gonna get it figured out and get him back on and do it again. But as of right now, we've got a good hour of talking to Logan, and I think you guys are gonna really like it. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon. Give it up for Logan Erdman. All right, Logan Erdman, got you on the line, man. How you doing, brother?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing super good, other than September's already over.
Yeah, it went quick. It really did.
Dude, it was insane. I can't believe I'm sitting here talking. It's like the 4th or 5th or something of October right now. And
yeah, it's
had a heck of a season. Sounds like you've had an even better season. You've been all over the place. And just so you guys know, so Logan lives in Ohio. What part of Ohio are you in, Logan?
I'm like 20 miles east of Cleveland.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've spent like 5 weeks in Cleveland one time for a training for my day job, and learned how to fly fish the rivers around there in the
Oh,
wrinkle
yeah?
current. Yeah, man. Really
Nice.
cool. This was like back in, I don't know, 2012 or something, 2011.
Did you do any good?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. And then some guy, as I was figuring the rivers out, some guy in the company that I worked for was telling me, yeah, no, you got to go to upstate New York to catch the big brown trout. And he showed me this spot, and he derailed me on my Ohio fishing. So I went over there and couldn't figure out how to catch a fish. So,
Oh, that happens.
yeah, dude. Anyways, so Logan, for you guys, for those of you that don't know, we recently did a youth hunting essay contest where we had the youth hunters write in an essay telling us kind of what kind of hunter they wanted to be and what kind of example they wanted to set. And we had a winner, and Logan custom made this really badass Skinner knife and donated it to one of the winners. And I put it in the first prize package. In fact, it's sitting right here in the studio with me because I haven't even mailed that stuff out yet, because I need to get all the info from like the Elk Collective and the Elk Bros guys so that I can get them all submitted and the winners entered into their for the scholarships. So I've still got it as of right now. I'm hesitant to give it away, dude. This thing is sweet.
Yeah, it turned out nice. Somebody's going to be happy, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you making the knife for us, and you made me a knife, and these things are just badass. And Logan, give us a little background on you, give us a little history, and just so everybody kind of knows who you are, and then we'll take it from there, dude.
All right. Well, yeah, my name's Logan, Cleveland native. So I was born and raised in Ohio, and introduced to hunting by my uncle as a kid. He unfortunately passed away when I was 11. So I kind of distanced from hunting until like later on. I think I was like 17 when I got my first compound bow, and I started getting back into whitetails. But I had a special place for elk in my heart. And I always said one day, I'm going to get after some elk. And back in 2014, I moved out to Colorado for a year and started cutting my teeth on the elk hunting, and I've been hooked ever since. So I've been going back every year since then. Colorado, Idaho. I bounce around, and I'm just an elk addict, man. I can't get enough of it.
Well, and you're pretty good at it too. I noticed you came up to my neck of the woods this year and slayed one.
Yeah, I got lucky for sure.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that hunt a little bit, but what I really wanted to talk about for the listeners, so they know, not that I'm super enthusiastic about promoting non-residents coming to Idaho to hunt, but I travel to other states to hunt, and so that it would be really unfair of me to not promote it a little bit, right? And I want to talk about how you do that, how you go about, you load up, you come out west, I know you went to Colorado for a little bit, and then you came up to Idaho, and then back home, and then you go home and shoot a couple of deer. And that's just kind of the process. I want you to talk to people about how that happens and how, like, the logistics of it and why, because I think that there's a lot of dudes like you that live in the Midwest or gals, and they live in the Midwest or they're back east, and the thought of, coming out west to hunt an elk seems like this impossible thing. It's like this big, mountain to climb, or like there's this entry point that is just really difficult and super expensive and whatnot. And maybe we can shed some light as to how that's possible for the average hunter.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming to think about, driving across the country, or, some guys fly out. I've never flown. I always drive, just because it's just better for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be really overwhelming. It costs a lot of money in gas, and it's for me it's a lifestyle, and it's like a full-time job. So it's every day I'm doing something to get closer to September, you know. So and it's tough when people are going out, or your friends invite you out, and it's like that's why I blacksmith so much in my free time, is to just try to make that extra money so I can afford the elk tag, or that extra mule deer tag, or the gas money to drive out there, or the new pair of boots, because nothing's cheap. Like good quality gear is not cheap.
I know.
And if you're gonna backcountry hunt, you want to be comfortable. And
Yeah, just
unfortunately, comfort is expensive.
yeah, that is an understatement, man.
So
I,
it's a discipline. It's a discipline. Elk hunting is a discipline.
So when you're talking about like blacksmithing, I want to talk about that for a minute, because it's pretty intriguing to me. You make knives, right? And these obviously we could go into as much detail or not as much as you want. And I want people to be aware, like as hunters, we all kind of get inundated by all these knife makers, right? On social media. And a lot of them are from like Pakistan and stuff. And they'll send me all these pictures of knives. Like, hey, you want a knife? I'm like, no, man, I have American made knives. But so like, how'd you get into that?
Well, it was actually elk hunting related. A buddy of mine was helping me out, like, just sharing some knowledge and some hot tips. And I was like, man, like, I don't know how to thank you. So how about a custom knife? And he was like, you make knives? I said, no. I was like, but I'm going to try. And it was born from that. So a thank you gift turned into a passion. Really, it's a passion of mine. I got a full blown shop out on my patio, and it's just something I enjoy. I always like to learn and grow. I'm a welder by trade, and I work
Is
for a
that
machine gun.
that's what I
Uh,
was going to
uh,
ask you. What do you do for a day job?
yeah, I'm a welder or a fabricator. I work for a machine gun manufacturer here in Cleveland. So we get to make guns. It's pretty cool. So I'm their welder. I make the 249s. It's a good job.
The
They take care of me
249
there.
saw?
Yes, sir.
No kidding. Dude, I remember you told me this a long time ago too, and I totally forgot. Like, that is one of the coolest jobs of anybody that's been on the podcast. Say, I work for a machine gun company. And
Yeah.
so you helped make the 249 saw, the squad automatic weapon.
Yes, sir.
And I gotta like, brag on myself for a minute. I held the 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines, the 2-2 record for best squad automatic weapon, 249. Yeah, I held that. I held the saw gunner record for years, man. In fact, I still don't know if somebody's broke it yet. But and the day that we were qualifying on it, I had freaking pneumonia, and I didn't know how. The day started on the range and ended with me in an ambulance ride on Camp Lejeune, because
Wow.
yeah, it was nuts, dude. I qualified with the saw, got the highest score ever in the battalion, and held the record. And then I was so freaking sick, they stuck me in a Humvee that drove me back to Mainside, which met an ambulance that took me to the hospital on base. And they're like, oh, yeah, you have terrible pneumonia. You shouldn't be out here.
Wow. That's insane.
Little side story for you.
That is awesome.
Yeah, pretty badass you do that, man. What do you do? What exactly do you do to make these machine guns?
Well, I get basically like a kit of parts, and I assemble them and weld them together and fit form function them, and then pass them to the next stage in the manufacturing process. So I basically just weld the receivers together.
Okay, I got a really important question for you.
Yes.
Are you a Johnny Cash fan?
I like some Johnny Cash.
Have you ever heard the song "I Got It One Piece at a Time"? And
Yeah.
like, how can we work this out?
I get that question all the time.
Because I need a good coyote gun. Actually, it'd be a good wolf gun.
Oh yeah, that'd be fantastic. Well, maybe we can get an M2 out there.
Yeah, dude. Whatever it takes. So no, that's cool, dude. That's super cool. Be an interesting industry. Is that kind of what's keeping you from moving out west? Because you are passionate and you're good at elk hunting. Like what's keeping you from coming out west and just kind of picking up roots and moving out here? Is it family or what?
The wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, we that is our number one argument is she knows I want to move and she wants to stay here with family. So
yeah.
She loves it out there. She loves to elk hunt. But she's just not ready to move. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, I mean, there's not much to figure out until that changes. So, in the meantime, you just come out. Like if you were able to move out west, where would you move to?
I'm really honestly, I think Montana.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Either Montana or Idaho.
And have you hunted elk in Montana?
No, I have not, but it's on my list for sure. I drive through there every year, and it's just like, man, I want to get after it.
Dude, we should figure out a trip for next year to Montana. I don't have a lot of points there, but I think I have like 2.
Yeah, I have none.
Well, that's okay. There's some units we could still draw for. Yeah, I think dude, you need to get on the Montana website and buy a point. And I know listeners in Montana right now are like, dudes, no, you're not coming to Montana. You just stay in Idaho.
If I can get a tag, I will definitely hunt it. I don't mind general tags. Over the counter's fine with me. I'm not a trophy hunter by any means. I just like to get after it.
Yeah. Yeah. I could tell.
So
I could tell for sure. So can you, let's switch gears and talk about that for a minute, because you had an interesting season so far, and for us, for me, it's not over, but September's over. Walk us through your September this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, it started in Colorado. I left a few days before the opener. Colorado opened September 2nd this year. So I left the last Saturday or Sunday of August. And I got out a few days early. Unfortunately, with all the wildfires, I was the basin that I was looking at deer since I've started hunting Colorado just got torched. So my plans, my plans basically, and this was like 6 years in the making, not 6 years of applying, but like 6 years of me saying like one day I'm going to get a tag and kill a deer up in that basin. And this was the year. And I found out about the fires a week before I was leaving.
So were you able to go to a different unit and hunt I'm not totally real familiar with Colorado's tags and what units are. And
yeah, I had like a block of units that I could hunt. So I was able to relocate, but it was on in an area I'd never been before. So
yeah,
challenging.
Tough. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, challenging.
How long did you spend in Colorado then?
13 days.
Okay. So you were there a while.
And yes, I was. And I got some really good elk encounters. So it was kind of like elk scouting while looking for deer. And I had some decent encounters with some does. And I ended up finding a couple really nice bucks.
You ever go hunting with somebody that always chintzes out on like the most important thing, like boots? I did a couple times. And you know what happened? They slipped and fell down the mountain the entire month of September. That's what happens when you buy $100 boots and try to make them last. They don't last. Guys, Hoffman Boots. Can't say enough good things about this company. It's a great family-owned business right here in North Idaho. They make badass boots. These things are insanely comfortable. They just glue your feet to the mountain in the steepest of conditions. They will keep you safer because of that. So while my buddies are falling on their butt the entire time, I'm walking down like I'm in the park. Guys, I have a great promo code that'll save you 15% if you go to hoffmanboots.com. It is all caps lock, Huntsman 15 in the checkout when you are ready for a new pair of great boots that you won't have to replace for a very long time. Guys, Scree is extreme mountain gear. They were one of the first sponsors of this podcast. And this high-performance hunting attire and gear it's scientifically tested camo patterns, backed by a great company, and it's got a lifetime warranty, VIP sizing and exchange program. Basically, if you order it and it's the wrong size, they pay for it to get shipped back, and they're going to send it back. I heard of some dude that accidentally ripped a pair of his hardscrabble pants, and he was upset about it, and he let Scree know, and they replaced them for him. Guys, this is a great company. That's the kind of company that I am proud to have supporting this show and being partnered with them. It's just, again, a great company story and a company that you guys would be proud to own the gear for. It'll get you through any season, anywhere in North America. Check it out at screegear.com and use the promo code The Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping at checkout. And last, but by far not least, Phelps Game Calls. Guys, Phelps Game Calls, you guys, if you've listened to any of these episodes, as I kind of dissected my last September, I had so many bull elk encounters using these calls, and I used everything from the Pink Maverick to the Pink Amp to the Maverick. I used the Renegade Bugle Tube. I used a couple of their external reed calls. Just had a ball calling in elk left and right, hand over fist, because these calls work. Obviously, they work well. It's not just about that, though. Guys, Jason Phelps started this company from scratch and built it into what it is now. The company, the game call company that we all know well. And I think that is so important. These American companies that are born out of an idea and they grow into this thing that we can all get behind and love and support, and the personalities and the people behind it. That's Phelps Game Calls. Salt of the earth company, salt of the earth people that run it. And I can't say enough good things about Phelps Game Calls. Don't forget, it's not just about elk with Phelps. You get you a blacktail in distress call and watch those deer come into you while they're rutting, because it fires up those does. And what do you think is right behind those does during the rut? November's coming. Make sure you're getting your deer calls as well. So check it out at phelpsgamecalls.com and use the promo code Huntsman10 for 10% off at checkout. I keep wanting to say shipping. That's how I roll. All right, guys, with that said, thank you to the sponsors of this show. Let's get back to the discussion. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. We'll talk to you later.
And I made a move. I ended up camping 9 miles from the truck, and because I didn't want to go in half cocked. I wanted to, watch these deer, because I figured I was the only one that knew about them. Mm-hmm. And, I was going to figure out where they were, exactly where everybody was at, and I was going to slip in when the wind was right, and I was going to kill myself a deer. And I got a half mile up in the crags, and I was waiting for the wind to switch, and I was waiting for him to pop out for the afternoon, and I hear voices below me. Oh. And I looked down, and like I said, I'm 9.5, almost 10 miles from the truck. And I think they're even further, because they didn't come from the trailhead that I parked at. So they're even further from the truck. So I whistled at these two backpackers, and I was like, please, don't go in this basin. I'm like, it took me a week to find these deer. Please, please, please. I begged these two people not to go any further.
And they weren't hunters. They were just like backpackers.
Yeah, they were just backpackers.
Gotcha.
So I begged, please don't go any further. I'm this close. It's all about to happen. Just please don't go any further. The dude pointed at me, and then he pointed for me to leave. And they just proceeded to walk up in the basin. And she stopped and
pulled. What do you mean? He pointed at you and then motion for you to just leave or something?
Yeah, he pointed at the mouth of the basin.
Dude, you have a lot more patience than I do.
Well, I don't know. I didn't. I was just. It was just me and the pikas up there at that point, and I didn't know if I should just roll off the crags that I was glassing from and just let the birds clean me up, or I really didn't know what to do. And I really didn't want to see those people because I don't think I was going to be too nice about it if I had seen them again. So,
and you'd said, and then the lady, and then I kind of cut you off. What did the lady do?
so they were about 100, maybe 120 yards from the willow patch that I seen these bucks in last, and she stops and busts the toilet paper out and go, because I didn't go anywhere. I was just sitting there glassing. I'm like, who knows? Maybe they're gonna blow these deer out, and maybe the deer are gonna get on the other side of them and walk right to me. So I didn't go anywhere. Well, she stopped right where I saw the deer last, like 100 yards, and she went into the bushes with her toilet paper and then came back out a few minutes later. And they did a big old loop and went down and made camp right in the middle of the basin. And so that was like a day or two before they called for that big snowstorm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out of food. I had like a day or two of food left. And I was like, man, I'm not prepared for a foot of snow in the high country. So I kind of had to bail out.
Dude, I'm like really frustrated about these hikers.
That's Colorado, man.
Yeah, I'm gathering that, and I really am, and it leads to a lot of different conversations, like how, as hunters, I think that there's a tendency for us to feel like we have ownership on some of these lands because they're public lands that are mostly funded, through hunting. That's where a lot of this comes from. This and the conservation of these animals and a lot of stuff. And I know that that's not the right angle to look at it from, because it is everybody's public land, right? But I mean, how do we balance this with? Because I have strong opinions about the encroachment of people and humans, these folks that move to places like Colorado and Idaho and Montana, maybe they're coming from like California and these big urban cities and these areas where they want to experience nature, and I'm a big promoter of that. You need to get out, and but what is it doing to our game animals when there's this constant parade of people and is this constant encroachment from humans into the backcountry where they're just not used to seeing them anymore, because people didn't always do this. It's not like this. It's just been this really popular thing lately where everybody wants to go hiking, and backpacking has really grown in popularity, and everybody wants to mountain bike into the backcountry on these trails. And I don't even know where I'm going with this, dude. It's just kind of a rant.
I know exactly where you're going. Okay, because I'm sure these biologists, if you talk to a biologist, off-trail recreation is the biggest disturbance to wildlife. So my proposal is a backcountry permit that costs as much as a non-resident elk tag. That way, if you want to go and blow somebody's $700 elk hunt up that came from out of state, just like what happened to me, or a mule deer hunt, or whatever the hunt is, how about if you wanna camp, okay, you're allowed 50 yards on either side of the trail. But if you want to go any further than that 50 yards on either side of that trail, you need a backcountry permit, just like I need a permit to hunt elk.
I agree, and I don't even care if it's as much, but enough that it like might deter some people who think that they're, because you and I both know they are not connecting to nature the way that hunters do, and clearly these people were not real fond of hunting, right? If they respected hunting and they respected hunters, they wouldn't have done that. They would have respected your request to not go into the basin. The basin. That would have been that. There's a lot of different options they could have gone from there. I'm sure it's Colorado, wide open, right?
100,000 acres on the backside of me. I mean, you can go literally anywhere else. And when I stood up and whistled at him, she was like, "Oh my God, what is he doing up there?" Like, I was some kind of
Oh
freak.
man, dude, that just makes my blood boil. You should have like grabbed his finger. No, I won't go there. I just like the way he pointed at you and then pointed to get out of the basement. Or why do I keep calling it the basement, dude? It's because you're just so the listeners know too. Like this is the first recording I've done since before September. I think I don't think I actually had a guest on the show in September. So I'm a little rusty. I've been hunting. So the basin, like he has more ownership on the basin than you do as a hunter is what that implies to me. And he doesn't like hunting. And so that's the mess that they're going to create for hunters. And this is what we have to be aware of and be prepared to combat in the future, because it's only going to get worse. California is a freaking mess. It's a liberal shit show. Everybody's moving out of there in droves, coming to places like Colorado and Idaho and Montana. And I mean, even I got a buddy in Eastern Oregon, and he's like, no, man, they're coming here like crazy too. And Nevada and Utah and all these places where, where we grew up and we live and we hunt and we spend time and we know these mountains and they're like, we're getting invaded by people that don't have a real appreciation for what these mountains mean and what this public land means and what this wildlife means to us. And it's just it's really frustrating, man. Like that totally derailed the whole episode here where we were trying to get to. I interrupted.
No, I mean, no, absolutely. I 100% agree with you, man. And it is absolutely true. When I was out there, I really did. I saw way more California plates than I ever have. So they are uprooting.
Oh, for sure. Did you have any pepper spray to send there? No, I'm just kidding.
Man, no, I had a whole lot of thoughts going on. And I sat till dark. I was like, I'm not giving up on this. And I went back the next morning. And I glassed all morning, and I was heartbroken, so I packed out, and I just went and beat some sagebrush, and I could have shot a radio collar doe.
Mm-hmm.
I had her at bow range, and she had this little baby with her, and I was just like, yeah, never gonna happen. So She got the pass, and that was the only deer that I saw the rest of the trip. But I did learn some stuff about where some elk were, so it wasn't all a waste.
Wasn't all wasted. Yeah.
No, so
that's good.
That's Colorado. So
then you hiked back to the truck, left the air out of their tires, and then headed to right. I mean, you got something.
And I really did earn those deer. I mean, my hands were sunburnt so bad they looked like pieces of leather. My lips were cracked and bleeding. My ears were bleeding from sunburn inside my ears. Living above tree line for that long and glassing for that long a day, it is brutal. So I have this newfound respect for these guys that do that all the time on these giant mule deer. It's just it was a humbling experience. Yeah, it was a humbling experience for sure. So it's something I'd like to do again. 11.8 to 12.3, I think.
Oh yeah, you were way up there, man.
Yeah, so
then you head to Idaho.
Yes. I went and picked my wife up in Washington at Spokane Airport, and I've got some friends that live up in Washington. So we met up with my friends and got a shower, which was awesome. And then we went elk hunting.
You flew on an airplane after 13 days in the woods without showering?
No, I drove from Colorado.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And your wife flew into Spokane.
Yeah, so I picked her up.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense. And then, and so, because we talked about you got some friends kind of in the Blanchard area or somewhere up in my neck of the woods. Yes,
sir. Yes. Just it's on the Washington side of Blanchard. So like Newport.
Oh yeah. That's actually pretty good elk country up there.
Yeah. They've got some muzzleloader tags. I think they're going to do pretty good this year.
Yeah. Cool. Good for them. Yeah.
I'm excited.
I got a big old mule deer years ago up there in that area.
Yeah, it's
So
awesome. That's the the country's awesome, man. I love it up there.
you came up to do some elk hunting and kind of walk us through your elk hunt.
Well, I was not anticipating the smoke being so bad.
Yeah, none of us
That
were.
was shocking, man. The first day it wasn't bad. I'm like, okay, there's a little smoke, and then so we packed in maybe 2 miles, way up. I mean, probably 2,000 foot elevation gain we from the truck to where we camped, and the wife didn't tell me she had some hot spots going on, and her feet got just wrecked on the, the
Wow.
hike into camp, which I don't know why she didn't tell me. But it turns out, so on the way home, we listened to some podcasts, and we caught Randy Newberg's podcast with the podiatrist that was on there.
Uh huh.
And it turns out she has incredibly high arches. So now her heel blisters are all making sense, and she's going to go see a doctor and get some custom orthotics so this never happens again. So it was a good learning experience.
Oh,
But yeah, her feet got shredded on the way into camp. So
I
she kind
lost
of
you for a minute,
underplayed it.
buddy.
Are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. It was my headphones came unplugged. Whoops. Anyway, so she's got to get some custom boots made. And so that sounds pretty interesting. I haven't caught up on that one. Randy Newberg
Yeah,
has some
man.
super interesting guests on, man.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah, I
he's
love
just,
dude. He's such a cool dude. Like I had him on the show, and it was when we started recording, and he's one of those guys that makes you feel like you guys have known each other for years, and it's like we're just old pals, and he makes you feel so comfortable, which you never know with guys that are that big. You know what I mean? It was so cool. I just really like
yeah,
the guy. I just really like the guy.
yeah, man. He's a legend.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm
So
gonna have to catch up on that one.
yeah, great information, and I would definitely suggest and recommend that episode with the podiatrist. I would recommend all of Randy's episodes to anybody, but
Oh, me
if
too.
you got foot problems or blister problems, definitely check that episode out.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's great, man.
So
And
yeah,
his podcast, just kind of as a plug for Randy, is called Randy Newberg Unfiltered Hunt Talk Radio. Go check that out. He's just got like years of episodes built up, and they're all relevant, even if you listen to some of them, from 3 years ago or whatever. So really good stuff. So anyway, you guys get up 2,000 foot elevation gain, a couple miles back. Yeah, let's walk. Let's take it from there, man. I'm really interested to hear how this went down.
and yeah, so her feet are smoked, and she's like, I think now that we're up here, I'll probably be all right. And I didn't realize the severity of it. She was kind of underplaying it to me. And the goal was, or like the tactic we were going to go with was glassing, like either night bugling or just glassing some elk up like we've done in the past. But the smoke was so bad when we woke up, it was like we couldn't glass at all.
Mhm.
So we hiked and hiked and hiked, and we're just kind of ridge running and checking out basins and looking for sign. And there wasn't really a whole lot of sign in there. And I noticed her limp was getting worse and worse and worse. So I was like, listen, we better just pack out of here and just go, live in the truck basically, and just kind of, I don't want to say road hunt, because people think like bugling from the truck window while it's running and stuff.
Well,
So like,
what, like that doesn't work?
yeah, no, it hasn't worked for me yet, but
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people I saw doing that. I think I covered that in the last episode, though.
yeah, you did definitely touch on it, but
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. But I got a cap on my truck, so that's one of the things. Like getting back to that as an Easterner coming out west is I'm kind of minimalistic. Like I only bring the stuff that we absolutely need, and I like the cap on my truck. So if you got a cap on your pickup truck or you're planning to come out west, you got a cap. Caps are great.
Yeah.
Mine's got locks on it. You can lock your stuff up in there, and you can sleep back there. It's good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like my cap.
I got one on my work truck, man. I love it. I'll take it out, and yeah, you can just lock everything up. So it's perfect size for an air mattress in a
Yeah.
pinch. Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome, dude.
So yeah, so her feet are smoked. We pack out. We go road hunting basically, so which is just day hunting. And I end up leaving her in the truck.
Basically, you're base camped. You've got a spot, and you're just going out looking for areas to go into, right?
Right, just day hunting from the truck. So it took us like a half day to get into camp, a full day to decide that the smoke was too bad, so we couldn't glass, and there wasn't just enough sign for us to stay. So we packed out. That was like the first day and a half. The second full day, I turned up some sign, but no elk. That night, I got a night bugle. And that bull ended up being the bull that I killed on the third afternoon. So I almost killed him that following morning. I had him. He was 200 yards from the road, Jim.
And nice pack out.
Yeah, he was bugling like crazy. And I had one of those heads up decoys. Have you seen those?
I've seen them. I've never used one.
They work pretty damn well.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm making my way up, and it's first light, and he's answering.
Is he like? Is he? And just to, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but I don't want to forget questions about this because.
Right. No, absolutely.
When you say he's answering, was he pissed, or was he just kind of casually responding back? Were you bugling or cow calling first of all?
I was sticking to cow calls.
And so he'd answer that, so he wasn't pissed.
What he really liked was so I tried the Champ from Rocky Mountain Game Calls. So I really like calf calls on that diaphragm.
Uh-huh.
He really didn't like the orange call, so I switched to a green Phelps amp, and he would only answer assembly mews. So I mean, for those listening that are familiar with Chris Rowe, if you're not, check it out. Assembly Muse, you'll understand. Yeah. That's like
the one that starts real high and just drops and holds the low note, right?
Yeah, like emphasize. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And that's the only thing he would answer. So I just fed him what he liked, and I caught a glimpse of him in that North Idaho brush. You know how thick it is, obviously. Mm-hmm. I mean, so I caught a glimpse of him, and I'm like, yeah, it's definitely a bull I'll shoot. And I hear gravel crunching, and there's this truck creeping up the road, man, and he did not like that truck on that road. He zipped his lips and bombed up the mountain. And when he got to the top, just before he went over, he just let out this like, oof, yeah. And I'm pretty sure he was like, bitch, there's a truck coming. If you're staying down there, like, you're crazy, I'm out. So he got out of there, man. And I tried to go up after him, and I know that area, and I was just like, you know what? I just stopped, checked the wind. I'm like, the thermals were kind of switching. I was like, if he's bedding where I think he's bedding, then he's either going to see me, hear me. Like, there's no way to get to him. Yeah. So I went back to the truck. I busted out my archery target. I shot my bow a little bit. I busted out some lunch meat out of the cooler. I was basically lazy all day and sat around my truck and hung out with the wife. And Brian Barney turned me on to the Windy app. And I kept checking the Windy app, and it said that like between 6 and 7 that the wind was going to change.
Okay, wait, we're going to have to back up. What is the Windy app?
The Windy app it basically tells you what the wind is doing currently and is going to do in the next whatever hours.
So it just like gets your location. Is it generic? Like, okay, I'm hunting. I'll use Coeur d'Alene, Idaho as an example. I'm hunting 15 miles northwest of Coeur d'Alene, but it's giving me the wind in Coeur d'Alene.
No, man. This thing is like a topographical map.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's sweet. So you can take the map exactly to the basin or the drainage that you're hunting in, and there'll be this like little swoop thing going across, and it shows you exactly what the wind's doing. And then there's like a time dial at the bottom, so you can fast forward like what is it going to be doing at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock.
No
It's
kidding.
actually
I didn't even know
it's a
about this.
great tool, and it totally aided in the success in my bowl. Totally.
Okay, so wind and weather, or
It's just
windy
a
duck.
windy app. It's a red W, or it's like a red block with a white W in it. I'm
I've
sorry.
I've
And it's
got
just called
I've got
Windy.
Windy Maps, #1 offline map in the world, and it's red with like a green, the little locator thing on like your maps, and like it's almost a W, but I found it. Yeah,
Yes.
got it. Okay, downloading right now.
Yeah, that's a great tool, man.
Sweet. Guys, I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you, Brian Barney. He's the man.
Sweet.
So, yeah. So, and the wind actually, it changed an hour sooner than the app said it was going to.
Okay.
So I grabbed my stuff. I was like, honey, I'm bombing up the mountain. And it was about a 20-minute hike. And I sat down and, knocked an arrow, and I got my heads up decoy. I brought like a little squeeze clamp, and I clamped it to a trekking pole, and I stuck the trekking pole in a tree. So it was like this cow elk head sticking out of a tree, basically. And I got set up, and I let everything kind of calm down, and I made sure the wind was good. And I just started a cow calling sequence that was kind of like a mom talking to a calf, is basically what I was going for. And I don't know, 2 sequences, maybe 5 minutes apart. And it's just real light, like contact calls, nothing crazy, just real light through the bugle tube. Kind of not the opposite direction, but not straight towards where I thought he was bedded. And I set my bugle tube down, and I heard what sounded like a pencil break. And I look over, and I just see ivory tips coming through that brush. And I was like, oh my, and he was already in bow range. I had no idea. He came in completely silent. So I reached down and grabbed my bow, and I stood up, and he was at 10 yards, just drooling, Jim, just slobbering. And he had, like, when they say they know where that sound's coming from, like, he had it pegged.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's amazing, dude. They have radar.
Yeah, he was staring a hole through me. Like straight up, just burning a hole through me.
It's super interesting, man. Because that's like the story of my life for this September. I don't know how many bulls I called in that came in totally quiet, like you just said. Like you don't hear anything, maybe a stick pops, but all of a sudden they're right there. So I want to say it was 4 times I had a bull within bow range that I didn't know was there until it was too late. And that was what my biggest takeaway from this September in comparison to other Septembers in the past is the elk were not as vocal. In North Idaho, they were not like screaming their heads off like usual. And they would just come in super quiet. In fact, I had one, I'd walk up on this mountain. I almost always say the name of the mountain on the show, and I really try hard not to do that. But I'm up there, and I kind of walked down. I started kind of walking down the north face. The wind was good, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to throw out some cow sounds, because I'd figured out at this point they're not responding to bugles when they're close. They will when they're far, but if you close the distance, they shut up. So I just started cow calling, just like you were saying. A cow talking to her calf. And all of a sudden, the side of me vibrates, and I pulled my phone out, and I was like, "Oh, this is crazy! I have cell service up here. I hadn't had cell service in I don't know how long." So I opened it up. It's my wife. She's texting me. I sent her a text back, put the phone back, and as soon as I put it back, I hear this cracking of sticks, like you're saying, to the right of me, and I'm like, "There's a bunch of deadfall in the way, right?" And I'm like, crap, I can't see anything, but he's definitely coming in. So I take an arrow out, and I needed to move around some of these trees, and I step between these two trees, and I look up, and there's this monster of a bull, man. I mean, the kind that dreams are made of. He had a drop tine,
Oh
beautiful
no.
brown colors. And as soon as I stepped between the tree and I could see him, obviously he could see me. And he looked at me like, what the hell are you? Turned around and ran off, and I could hear him going down the mountain like a freight train for about 45 seconds. So
Oh
the point
no.
is, it took some whiskey to get sleep that night. I'm not going to lie. And that happened again. That happened 4 times before I finally got that one bull fired up. But that was like the commonplace. So this is super interesting. You look over, you hear the slightest little twig snap. You said like sounding like a pencil. You snapped a pencil in half or something.
That's all I heard, man.
And then you see this happen to my cousin too, Andrew. He's up there cow calling, and all of a sudden he sees tines. He didn't even hear anything. He sees tines coming out of the brush, and all of a sudden this bull presents himself, and I don't know what happened. He choked his shot or something missed or whatever, and there it went. And so this has been real commonplace this year. So super interesting. But the difference being here, you actually installed an arrow in this bull.
Yes, sir. And it was like this crazy standoff. It felt like eternity. I think it always does, but really it was probably maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe. And he was perpendicular to my decoy. So he had it pancaked, he couldn't see the cow head. He was looking at me. And I was trying to keep the brim of my hat over my eyes and just barely look at him. I didn't want him to see my eyes. And I remember just telling him to walk away. I was like, you don't like it, just walk away. Walk away. Because in my experience, they go to leave, and then they kind of will turn broadside and kind of look back like one last time.
Yep.
Like, are you sure? You sure you're not there? Or like, hey, I'm gonna leave.
Let me do
sure?
one more check. Yep.
Exactly. So I figured as soon as I seen Big Yellow Rump, I was gonna draw and wait for him to do that, famous one last broadside look and smoke him, And we just stood there and stared at each other, and he was just drooling and drooling and drooling. So finally he acts like he's gonna turn to leave. And usually they go back the way they came. With me anyway. It's like my experience, I was expecting him to walk back the way that he came. So I draw the bow, and he didn't read the script. He ends up turning left and walking on the other side. Well, there's like some brush, and the decoy was right there. So finally he's walking left, turned back and looked at me and saw the decoy, and it surprised him. And he was like, man, like, where did you come from? So he kind of looked like he started to get nervous, and I'm on the wrong side of all of this at full draw. So I kind of read, his body line, like he kind of looks like he's getting nervous. He might bolt. So I just went for it. I swung over, and I just put that pin on him, and I probably punched the shit out of my trigger now that I, think about it. I totally didn't execute probably a good shot, but that arrow went in right. It was he was spinning. He seen me swing over. He didn't like it. So he spins right as I shoot, and I caught him quartering away. The arrow went in right in front of his left rear leg and exited behind his right rear shoulder.
Sweet.
Yeah, and he ran off, and I got him to stop with some cow calls, and he stops and looks around, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good, so I knock another arrow up. And I get some trees between him and I, and I'm giving out a few little cow calls, and I kind of got a range on where he was at. I was going to go shoot him again, and he just fell over on his face right there, maybe 60 yards. Yeah, it was crazy.
Is that, dude? Wow.
Yeah, it was great, man. So
awesome.
I couldn't even believe it. So I call the wife, and I'm just she says, or I sounded like an auctioneer, I think. Just rambling words off. And she was like thinking the only reason you'd be calling me on the phone is that you got an arrow in a bowl. So I told her, I was like, I don't know if he's dead. Like, I might have to go put another arrow in him. Like, I'll call you back. So I hang up and I run over there, and he looks stone dead, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I listened to your podcast on my way up to Idaho, and I heard about that guy that got gored. What was it, in Oregon?
Yeah, man.
So,
That was on my
you
mind
know,
too. Yeah.
I'm like, I need to make sure this thing's dead. He looks stone cold dead, but, you know, mouth open, all that. Well, I cow call and I get about 20 yards from him, and he comes back to life, man. And he starts trying to get up. And I take a step off to the side to clear some brush. And I draw my bow, and he's like really struggling to get up. And as soon as he stood up completely, he just rolled back over on the other side and fell over and was like expired at that point. And this all happened in like a minute.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it all happened so fast. So I did a big loop around him and ended up jumping on the tree that he was dead on just to make sure that he was dead. Yeah, man, it all happened in maybe a half hour of me leaving the truck.
Sweet. That's
And he
cool,
was,
man.
yeah,
That's so cool.
987 yards from the truck.
Man. There's a lot of people that are like, that is a pack out that they're envious of for sure. I would have been. And and he was like a 5x6 or something?
He's got a little cheater 6x on there, I guess.
Is he?
Yeah, it's an inch.
He looked pretty. He looked pretty stout, man, in the picture. I was pretty impressed.
He's got some. I rough scored him. Assuming I did it right, he's 261.
Cool. I'd take him all day, man. I would take him all, like you said. I'm not a trophy hunter.
No, I mean that's a bonus for me. So I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity, man. And what an awesome bull.
Heck yeah, man. I'm proud of you. That's just awesome. I like the fact that you were up there and you were able to recognize that he wasn't into bugles, so you switched to cow calls and you were able to get him to come in with cow calls. And because the tendency for me, at least, I'm not speaking for you, but for me is my tendency, and what has always worked is I want to rip my bugle and just piss him off. And it just wasn't working this year until this bull. I call him Mr. Chuckles because all he did was chuckle. And he was on this strange little, like, I want to call it a mountain, but it's more of a hill up in this unit I was hunting. And I'm right on the border of units too, which would have taken me out of the panhandle. Gosh, guys, I'm so sorry. This is where the interview gets cut off with Logan, and I'm not totally sure what happened to the audio, but I had it recorded in full, and when I went to load it into my system here, it had cut us in half, essentially, because, I don't know what happened. I think I'm just super rusty because I've been out hunting for a month, and what we're going to do is I'm going to try to convince Logan to come back on the show because the second half of this podcast is actually the really important part. And I wanted him to talk to some of you guys out there that travel to different states to hunt because Logan does that every year and he's got a lot of experience doing it. And what we do is we talk about how he does that with the logistics of it, how he packs his truck, how he gets the meat back, all these things, just the logistics, picking units and finding these game species in these particular units and picking states and all this different stuff that I think a lot of you guys would get a lot out of. I sure did, and I am just bummed that we got cut off and it's my fault. I don't know what I did with the second half of this audio and how I got rid of it. It's actually never really happened to me like that before. So anyways, I apologize about that. We do have some really good episodes coming up for you over the next throughout the month of October. I don't know if you guys are fans of the movie the television series Mountain Men, but you're going to want to stay tuned. And then I've also got somebody coming on the show who is absolutely a very inspiring individual that he's so knowledgeable. I'm so glad to be able to just pick his brain. And he's got over 40 years in animal wildlife research. And anyways, your mind is going to be blown by this guy. He's amazing. And so that's all coming up throughout this month. Again, lastly, guys, I'm really sorry. Logan and I got cut off there. I knew my internet was a little bit shaky, and I think really that's what happened is the second half just didn't pick up enough or something, so it just kind of like cut it out. I just really don't know, and I apologize to Logan, I apologize to you guys, but we're going to get it back on so we can finish the discussion again and get that information out to you guys. So with that, guys, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks a bunch for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed what we did have, and we'll see you soon. You made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.